one. One, I think it's like a bit further off. One, that like super punches in. Two. These are nice to keep in your hand. Yeah. Alright, well, let's play. I want to get some setting up.
Oh yeah, that's what we're doing.
I'm rolling right now.
Where's there's another battery?
Oh, it's
Don't worry about talking to the bottom.
And, I was going to go around. Do we want... It's just fine like this? We want someone on camera?
That's where we go. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Do we maybe want to get like more angles or?
Yeah. Maybe we'll move over.
Maybe even like one of the sign too.
I got one of the sign with the sunrise and the red balloon. Maybe now I'll move over to...
those who are still serving is incredible, and I want to extend our gratitude from the government for the work that you all do. And for everybody here, I want to say thank you to the organizers. Fantastic job done. Fantastic to be here in person again. And thank you to every single one of you who is here walking, who has collected donations, who has promoted this event. Thank you so much for supporting our veterans.
Thank you, Minister. And Colonel Hunt, if I could call upon you to say a couple words.
Thanks, Dean. First off, I would just like to thank all the veterans here for your service and the families that stood behind you both during your service and since then. Every veteran has their stories, the good and the more challenging, and every veteran goes through that transition period into civilian life and civilian careers and a change of pace. So I'm delighted with the Canadian Walk for Veterans and the support that they're giving to support veterans programs and to make some of those transitions easier. I'd also like to recognize the volunteers that organize this event today, and it's volunteers that make communities strong and inclusive. So thank you for that. Finally, I'll put out the pitch. For any of those of you that miss it, you're always welcome in the reserve force, and we've got a new generation of soldiers that need your experience and your knowledge and experience as well. So thank you very much, and I'll pass back to Eugene.
So we have a special, so just some quick coordinating instructions. One, make sure you grab water, so that's the big plug. Two, all along the I was gonna say the parade route, I mean the walking route, sorry, gotta change brains here. There's markers, so we've got every 500 meters marked out. At 2,500, we actually forgot to put the sign that said turn around. So at 2,500, turn around, otherwise you're just gonna keep going. And as much as I love Calgary, I don't know where that ends. So make sure you turn around at 2,500. And last but not least, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We honestly didn't know what to expect the first time we were running this. So we hope you back next year and every year after, and we can just keep growing this bigger and bigger, and we can get all those funds to the veterans and the families in need. Okay, so on behalf of myself, my other organizers, Ty and Andrea, we're about to cut the ribbon with Colonel Hunt, and the band is going to lead you on your walk for the first 500 or so meters. So make sure you give them a big round of applause when you pass them once they turn on and come back. So thank you again. But we still supported them, right? And those are all veterans.
So I was curious then, do you feel like, you don't have to boil this down to one thing, but in my head I think media specifically, do you feel like whether it's the media or it's just broadcasting at large, does enough to, I guess, sort of shed light on what's happening there?
I think they do. I mean, as evidenced, we had a media request from City News a couple days ago. A radio station reached out. CTV News was here today. You guys are here. So I think, if you keep up the good work that you do, it's working towards continuing the message, right? And it's the message that's important, and it doesn't mean people give millions of dollars, but as long as everyone knows about it, and I think the media is doing a good job, right?
Okay, I'll keep it brief because
sure.
I know you're very busy.
That's okay.
I was curious. I've been asking everybody this today,
sure.
And it was very interesting to sort of hear their answers because the consensus was that we could do a little bit more because we celebrate Remembrance Day, and that's kind of the big day of the year that everybody remembers those who have fallen, especially especially like in school assemblies and stuff like that. That's the one thing that's sort of ingrained in every young identity's understanding of the military's role in world history. But I was wondering, outside of that, do you feel like we could do any more? Do you think we can do enough to celebrate this outside of our national tradition, such as Remembrance Day?
I mean, I think stuff like this helps. There are other events that happen within the confines of the military that probably don't get a lot of press, or within the cadet program. I mean, we annually, for instance, the Army celebrates Battle of Vimy, right? So on the 9th of April, the Air Force celebrates the Battle of Britain, and the Navy celebrate the Battle of the Atlantic, right? Those parades are very subdued. We typically don't get a lot of news media coverage on those, but we still remember where the elements come from, right? So at the Battle of Britain, obviously we remember all the airmen and women, in World War II mostly that fought the great fight in defending England, and the other ones, but I think certain provinces do really well. Like in Ontario, the Afghanistan Memorial in front of Queen's Park in Toronto is absolutely beautiful, right? And I have fond memories of the 60th anniversary of D-Day, where we had probably over 1,000 cadets and 1,300 reservists on parade with veterans and lining the streets. So I think we still managed to pull it off. Do we need another day other than Remembrance Day? I don't know. You know,
Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be another holiday, right? Or
right,
something like that.
but like a national day of observance, right? I mean, I think everyone knows that Remembrance Day is that day, and then you know everyone who wants to participate in all the rest, you know, they do, right? So.
Okay, so I have some questions for you specifically.
Sure.
Because I understand it's been sort of hectic here. It's been, so this was, you guys didn't do any walks during COVID, right?
So I didn't know anything about this until the Investor Service of the Order of St. George back in April.
Yeah.
Where, is this part on camera, or are you just asking this question?
If you don't want it to be on camera. it doesn't
Okay,
need to be on
colloquially, we had never heard of it.
Okay.
And we got approached by Mark Burchell at the Investor Service. He was inducted as a field knight at the Investor of the Order of St. George in April. And he approached us knowing that we're this group from Calgary, and we were asked if we would host it because the people that did it back the last in-person event in 2019, they couldn't get in touch with any of those folks. So so we said, sure, why not, right? You know, we're used to planning stuff with cadets, so this should be easy. And so that's how we got involved with the walk. And but yeah, no, I mean, this is our first kick at the cat running it, so we're hoping. Hopefully next year will be easier, right? This year we had to kind of rebuild the base for it,
Yeah.
right? Because we didn't, you know, we had to get banners and we had to get t-shirts and we had to get all of this stuff. Next year, hopefully it's a lot easier. It's going to be copy and paste and just make it a little bit bigger.
No, of course.
So,
Okay, all right. I'll give you one more, and then
Sure.
I'll let you back to it. I'm gonna leave it off with maybe a little bit of a tricky one. Okay. So
tricky one. Jesus.
again, social studies high school.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah.
I'm an engineer. You know, I almost failed those courses.
I wanted to ask, in your mind, what role does the military play in making up, well, not just our national identity, but a country's national identity? It's okay. It's a sinker.
I don't know how to answer that. I honestly don't.
Well, I don't know. If you think about like some of our most deep-rooted traditions, they lie in, sort of like, patriotism, and a big part of that comes from showing support for, our military tradition, and obviously, those who have fallen in past wars and stuff like that. But I'm just wondering, if that sort of gets, I guess, if people are not like keenly aware of those things, what sort of is maybe the effect in your mind? And I'm not saying this is really a reality, but I'm just sort of curious into what you think.
Well, the success and failure of our military, or any military, right, is not always a true reflection of it's the position they were put in.
No, of course.
Yeah. And we're all very proud to, as a nation, I think, to get behind our military when the times are good. And I think if you honestly look at Afghanistan, I was living in Ontario during the majority of the Afghanistan conflict, and if you looked at the Highway of Heroes, for instance, I actually participated in one of the motorcades, and you don't know what kind of moving experience it is to see every bridge, between Trenton and downtown Toronto lined with fire departments, veterans, legions, and just people that want to pay their respects for the fallen. And I think as a nation, we really bound together for that. It was one thing to start from the drive from Trenton, but the closer you got into metropolitan Toronto area, and especially, when the motorcade turned down the Don Valley Parkway, and the northbound lanes of the DVP were like, honestly, dead stop. People were out of their cars paying their respects. And then when she turned into downtown, and I still remember the last left turn onto Grosvenor Street where the motorcade was going, and the entire street lined so deep with people, military, police, first responders, and it showed the support of a nation. Sure, one part of the world, but so much so that they renamed a part of the highway, right? The Highway of Heroes, and I think when the Gettins, even when things don't go well, our nation has stood behind our soldiers, our veterans, and looked at, we could hold our heads proud to say, you know, we're Canadians and we're proud supporters of, you know, our Canadian military. So,
Oh, very, very well put. Okay, well then one more for you.
sure.
And we'll call it that. What is your hope, I guess, suppose, for this event in the years to come?
So our hope for the years to come and make it bigger and better. Obviously this year having we never in a million years thought we could pull off a band, but you know, that was awesome. Having the brigade commander here, you know, as the brigade commander spoke to that, you know, this is a big training weekend. A lot of the soldiers are out of town deployed. But it would be lovely if we could have, you know, even more soldiers in uniform here, more veterans, get the legions out, you know, just make it bigger and better, right? Turn it into a true family experience where, you know, we can all celebrate the veterans together like that, as representative of our families and the supporters of the you know, current serving and veteran members. So,
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Gene.
you're welcome.
Thanks so much. And it was an amazing walk. We met some
thank you.
amazing people.
That's awesome. And yeah.
I would say it was a huge success.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I was shocked. We had 3 members of parliament here.
Yeah, I walked up to them thinking they were just attendees, and I was just going to ask them some sort of just ice-breaking questions, but I didn't realize I was speaking to some MPs. So
Yeah, we had Bob Enzen, Tom Kamish, and Pat Kelly. Pat Kelly.
Yeah.
And then we had Minister Isaac from the provincial government, which was phenomenal. I wish we could have had some city representation, but
yeah,
you know, it's.
you can't have them all.
I guess you can't have them all.
You can't have them all.
But no,
Pretty good start,
but next year, I mean, hopefully we can, you know, continue the trend and get some more out. And, you know, I mean, when we sent the notices to their offices, maybe we need to send them a year in advance to put it on the calendar. I don't really know how politicians work, so you know, I don't know how you get into their calendars and stuff. And also post-COVID, right? Now lockdowns are over. I know for, you know, other things, you know, now there's this mass rush. Oh, we can do events again. We can be around people again, right? So I can only imagine their calendars just went from almost nothing to just going, we want you in the community again, and they have to kind of pick and choose what they do, right? So
of course.
yeah. So no, this is great to have you guys here too. So hopefully you can be out next year too.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I will.
Okay, awesome.
Can I ask you one really quick question? What's
Sure.
your favorite movie?
Top Gun.
Well, actually, can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Because we're obvious. So we're film students. We love movies and stuff like that. And I was sort of curious about. Okay, 2 questions.
Okay.
2 questions. Okay. So I was wondering, do you think if Canadians were able to get a glimpse into the reality of what it was like to be in places like Afghanistan, Bosnia, Lebanon, Rwanda, that they maybe would show even more enthusiasm towards the veterans that went there? And by a glimpse, I mean like in a broad sense.
I'm not sure enthusiasm's the right adjective, but
Enthusiasm towards showing appreciation.
I think so.
Yeah.
If they knew the story behind the story, if they knew what the commanders and the soldiers faced in those conflicts, right? I had a whole new, you know, I read Romeo Dallaire's book. Put me on the spot now. Shaking Hands with the Devil.
Okay.
And it was a very graphic, but very true representation of what went on when Dallaire was deployed, and I believe it was Rwanda. And when you read that book, you have a whole new appreciation of what those soldiers saw and what they went through. And you know, I've had the in the last in my years within the military, I've had the pleasure of speaking to people that have served overseas and things like that. And when you hear their stories, when you hear, you know, I'm in charge of this group, and all of a sudden the enemy is